I'm Megan from Not an Autism Mom, and I'm here with Amanda, and she is with SLP Neurodiversity Collective, and I'm so happy to have you on. Amanda, could you tell us what the SLP Neurodiversity Collective is?
Yeah, so the SLP Neurodiversity Collective started off as a Facebook page by our founder, Julie Roberts. She's a speech pathologist as well. We started as an information hub, basically, mostly for speech pathologists, and to get information to parents about trauma-informed practices for their kids. And then as the page grew, and more speech pathologists and even occupational therapists, social workers and teachers were asking for more resources, we started talking about forming a nonprofit. And we have a board now. It's Julie is our president, myself, in charge of assistive technology and augmentative communication. Kieran Rose from the autistic, he's, I'm losing my
advocate, right?
Yes.
I love Kieran. I love him.
Julia Bascom from the Autistic Self-Advocacy
Network.
Thank you.
That's okay. ASAN, right.
Jeff Gwenzel from ICDL, DIR Floor Time. And then we just put together our therapy board over the weekend. Everybody individualized, working on resources and getting together. So memberships will be available soon, free for families and the community. Our goal is to partner actually autistic, actually neurodivergent population members with, professionals to, work together to put together education opportunities for, professionals or family members, following along ASAN's motto, nothing about us without us.
I love that.
So
I really do. And will you all be partnering with school systems as well?
We hope to do, as much education as we possibly can. Yes, definitely.
And so when you guys do go live, if a school system didn't want to partner with you, how would they go about doing that? How would they go about trying to get training from you guys? Do you know that yet? Am I jumping ahead?
But our Facebook page is a little rough right now, but it's slowly getting built.
It's amazing.
I'm sorry, not our Facebook page. Our website is slowly getting built. So that's a way to contact us right now, and through Facebook Messenger and our website, and we will have hopefully people posted all over the world to contact and be available to provide trainings.
That's awesome. I love that. I love that. And I love your Facebook page. It has a lot of great links, a lot of great resources for parents, teachers, if you're looking for what I call pro-autism links, pro-autism resources, from you guys. I think that is amazing. So it's SLP Neurodiversity Collective. If you haven't liked their Facebook page, definitely do that.
We're very autism positive. We're very neurodiversity positive. We're about inclusion and acceptance for sure.
Awesome. Thank you for coming on with us. Oh, and Julie Roberts said good morning. Good morning, Julie. So the purpose of this video is geared towards parents and teachers of children who are maybe just going through the process of an autism diagnosis, or they are maybe they just had their autism diagnosis, and they're having trouble communicating in typical ways. Maybe they're not talking a lot yet. And so it's for those parents and teachers, and to give them strategies of what they can do now in terms of helping to support them with communication. And that helps not only the person who is struggling with communicating, but it also helps the families and the community and the teachers. So that's what the purpose of this video is. And 3 years ago, I was going through that process. So I had twins who are autistic, and at that point, they weren't talking at all. So they were frustrated. I was frustrated. They were crying a lot. And I mean, just from the frustration, they weren't able to express their needs, express their wants. And it was hard for them. And so we go through the diagnosis process, and I think I became even more confused about how to help them. It was as if once we went through the autism diagnosis, everything became so clinical and everything became so methodical and urgent. And, we have to fix this, we have to fix them. Or, everything just became I became really confused as a parent. And I didn't trust myself anymore to do things the way that I have always done them. I didn't, and it was as if I didn't trust my children anymore either to learn, because that's what I was being told. So I think that's why I'm passionate about this, because all of that is wrong. Everything that I wasted a lot of time in the first year, not trusting myself, not trusting my children. And now I'm back to me. I'm back to being mom. I'm back to trusting my gut. I'm back to communicating with them in ways that I always knew worked, but for some reason I didn't think they were going to work anymore. If that makes sense. Does that make sense?
It absolutely does.
Okay. So what we're going to do in the video is we're going to talk about different strategies that parents can use today, starting today, no training needed, to help their kids, and teachers, to help their kids communicate today. And so I'm going to go to you and say, what is the most important thing that you could tell these parents and teachers about communicating with their children? What's the most important thing to you?
That you already said it. You do know your child, and you already are communicating with your child. You were communicating with your child before a label was put on your child. We communicate in a million ways without words, all day, every day, whether you're part of the neuromajority or you're part of the neurodivergent population. How often do you drive, get a little bit of road rage, and you lose your words? How often do you dismiss a call only to text the person back later? How often do you smile and wave and quickly, walk away? So we are all communicating without words a million times a day, when we point at a menu instead of, saying it out loud. How often does your child come up and just rub their head up against you, or grab you by the hand and pull you, or, they're stimming and that they're sharing their excitement with you. They're sharing a moment with you. They're sharing their communication. Learning to tune into that is what we have to learn how to do, and learn to listen and share in those moments. Communication is about connection. And we have to learn to find those connections when words aren't always available. So that's the biggest thing. Doing that before you got the label just threw you for a second.
It did. And the professionals threw me through a loop, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, that was one thing. I mean, I kind of had to unlearn the things that they were telling me. Thankfully, my children taught me better, but I had to unlearn a lot of those things that they were telling me.
Absolutely. And I think that sometimes then the focus becomes on, how many verbal spoken words can we get? And we forget that these are little people in little bodies that are dealing with a lot more than our big bodies are dealing with. They haven't learned how to regulate those emotions. They've got all this extra sensory information that they're trying to regulate, and their words aren't going to come as easy. So we really have to tune in to what they're giving us, and we have to acknowledge that, and we have to respond to it, or they're going to stop trying. So that's where it's really important to train caregivers and parents and teachers to be responsive to all of those cues, and to respond to them. And that's where we get a confident, competent, multimodal communicator, that's using gestures and facial expressions and, an AAC device. And eventually, yes, maybe a few words, and maybe a lot of words, but, all of those are going to give a kiddo a lot of confidence and build a lot of rapport with somebody. And that's where you're going to get all of those connections.
I love that. I love that. So I think that I want to talk about one thing that I kind of talk about on my page sometimes, and that's presuming competence. And that's a big thing. I know that we talked about this yesterday. And can you talk about that a little bit for our parents, for our teachers? What does it mean when we presume competence? What does that mean to you?
Sure. So, presuming competence. So I specialize in augmentative and alternative communication. I specialize in working with our most complex communicators. And sometimes that means that I believe before they prove to me that they can communicate, I have to believe that they understand what I am saying to them. I believe that it is a human right for everybody to communicate. I just read an article the other day about scientists studying the tree roots of trees and how they are communicating with each other from one tree to the next. I need
like
more.
in that movie Avatar.
Yeah, right? Oh, I need more nutrients. Can you send me more nutrients? Can you release a little more oxygen? If trees are communicating with each other in that fashion, every single human being that's born has the capacity to communicate. And we don't have to prove to somebody that we have met a certain level of vocabulary skill or joint attention. If we give somebody the tools that they need to use, then they will become a competent communicator. If we withhold those tools, they're not going to get to that level that we're requiring.
I see that all the time. I'm sorry. You're touching my soul right now. I see that all the time, especially in the school system when, and I did a live on this, I think about a week ago, when we were talking about different ways of assessment. And with our kids, if they're not able to get a typical assessment done and get the data they need, then they just stall and they don't progress into anything else. So let's just say in kindergarten, if you're learning letters of the alphabet and the next progression would be to be learning words, if they are not able to typically show proficiency and nobody gives them another way to do it, then they are not presuming competence, and then there's no progress from there. So I think that's so important, is just to presume, even if we are not competent enough to assess them, that's on us. That's on us as parents, as teachers. If we're not competent enough to assess them the way they need to be assessed, then we still need to presume that they are competent enough to move on.
Yeah. So, if I see a kiddo at 5 that doesn't have a device yet, I feel like we have already failed.
Absolutely.
The system has already failed that kiddo. I feel like at 5, we should have a complex communicator using a device for multiple communication functions. They should be going into kindergarten ready to, literate. We should be starting these kids, 2, 3, as young as possible. Early intervention should have these devices. We should have core vocabulary boards. Literacy should be involved right away. I'm as big on the literacy Bill of Rights as I am on the communication Bill of Rights. So we should be doing this, simultaneously. Early,
I agree.
Robust communication. There isn't too young. There's no such thing as somebody's too young for a robust communication device. It's not going to hinder speech. It's only going to, that's a myth. Giving somebody access to a device, it gives them a consistent model for their speech. It gives them, something when communication breaks down. It only helps develop speech.
Absolutely. And we are going to go, for the viewers, we are going to go over AAC devices. I mean, we can do that right now if you like. And we're also, if this, we're gonna decide later, and we might do a complete separate video just on AAC devices and how to access them and go through insurances and stuff like that. But today we will talk a little bit about AAC. Do you want to do that now?
Whatever.
Okay, that's fine. Well, so you know what? No, I had a plan. I can't deviate from my plan because I made notes. So yeah, we're going to talk about AAC devices in a minute. But all right, so let's talk about one more thing. We talked yesterday about paying attention, and this is something that I think is really important for parents and teachers to understand. There is something called total body. Is it total body or whole body listening?
Whole body.
Whole body listening. Okay, so this is something that the person who made up whole body listening did not even, I've been talking to her after I made a post on my Facebook page, and she didn't even make this as a rule. She made it as just a tool to kind of help children understand an abstract concept such as listening, because that's abstract, and kind of show what that might look like to some kids. But I think that paying attention, especially for our kids, may look a lot different than a typical child. So whole body listening is looking with our eyes, quiet hands, body is turned towards you. And that's not always the case, right? So I know with one of my kids, he might glance at me from the side for a second, right? And we may not know if he's listening or not. But what do you have to say about that? Can we talk about paying attention for a minute?
I've learned that attention looks very different in our neurodivergent population, and it looks very different on every single kiddo. I've found that our kids need to be regulated emotionally and sensory wise, or they have no attention. And sometimes attention is a back to me. I'm talking at a back, and they have a quick glance. And I have been told that quick glance, they can map an entire room and all the structures in it. And if I move something in the space, then that will completely throw them. But other than that, they have that space mapped, and can hear where everything in the room is. And I just say, I need your attention for a second. Do I have it? And I usually get a little, a wave or a nod or something. But attention looks different. And I've had to shift, what I look at when I'm working with a group as attention, because it means that I'm at the table usually and everybody is in chaos around me. But I have more gains in my kids since I have let go of what I think attention should look like.
Letting go.
I have shifted, I have different seating. We have fidgets. Kids come and go from the space. But with that freedom means that kids are making progress.
And it's helping them regulate themselves as well. I mean, yeah. The movement, all of that is self-regulation, and that type of movement, that type of whatever it is, it may actually help them process a little bit better of what they're trying to learn or what you're trying to teach them, or just absorbing, period. And that goes back to presuming competence when they may not react to us in a way that we think that we are trained to see, but that doesn't mean that they're not absorbing it. There was one day when one of my kids came up to the counter. This is after, they're working on numbers, all year long, and nobody really knows if he's getting it or not. But he comes up to the counter when I'm making dinner one day and just starts writing his numbers. Like, Oh, okay. So you do get that. So not at school and not for your teacher or, not while we're doing it, but he taught me that, yeah, he does know, he is listening or he is processing it, and let's move on from there. So I think that that's important to, talk about when we're talking about neurodiverse kids. So that's awesome. Thank you for that. Okay. So let's go into to one strategy for communication. And this is something that I struggled with when my kids were really little, because I have older kids too that are neurotypical. And so when they were babies, we started sign language. Sign language is something that is really great for kids before they can talk. Uh, it's just a great way for them to communicate, right? So we would start with, do you want more? Like even when they're 6 months old, do you want more? Are you all done? Do you want a drink? I don't even know if that's the right sign for that, but things like, do you need help? These are signs that we use with our kids. And then when I started using them with my twins, who at the time I did not know that they were autistic, they never did it back to me. I was signing to them for months and months and months, and they never did it back to me. So I figured that they weren't getting it for some reason. And so a disclaimer that I would add for using sign language is that sometimes our kids have poor motor planning, or sometimes, like we said before, they don't reciprocate what we're doing in a typical way. So, but it doesn't mean that they're not getting it. So sign language, I would say, is a great start for communicating no matter what. Even if they're not able to say more, they can see you saying more. It's a visual. So I think that signing is a great tool for any kid. And if you're looking for sign language resources, there's like tons of them. I ended up buying a book because I'm a book person. So, and I bought this book and it has baby sign language, just, I don't know, a bajillion different words to help parents or teachers sign to their kids. There's lots of resources online. And I think that you said that there was a song.
I think there's some songs on YouTube. Yep.
So do you have anything to talk about, like with sign language? Because I'm a parent.
Some kids definitely, you kind of want to follow the kiddo's lead. And that's what my mentors always say, if a kid is going more towards gestures, you kind of want to work with their gestures. If they're going more towards, you want to work with whatever they're going towards, but anything visual, autistic people tend to do well with visuals. Anything that can give a visual to like an abstract concept. So supplementing, with sign until you can get some symbolic language to supplement is always good. My only caveat with sign is that not everybody can sign and understand sign. It's not as universal. So, you may have sign that, I feel like there's some universally accepted signs, more, drink, we all are starting to accept. I feel like some is becoming more universally recognized.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like we want people to be able to communicate everywhere.
So are you saying that it's because, are you saying that it's the different countries have different signs? Is that what you're saying?
No. I'm saying, if you're working with your kiddo and you want that to be their only form of communication, they're going to be limited. So
yeah, definitely. Absolutely. Where
they can communicate.
And they're going to be limited to the words that you show them, no matter what.
Yes.
And if you don't know that many signs, then, I mean, that's definitely a limitation. Absolutely. Thank you for that. Yeah, I didn't even think about that.
Yes.
That's a great thing. Yeah. Okay. So,
I do see more and more schools are starting to teach sign, like in elementary school, I think,
mm-hmm.
which I think is awesome.
Our high school has sign language as a foreign language.
Oh, that's cool.
Well, our district, not our high school. Our district has like one school in the entire district, but it's a step.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It's a step in the right direction.
Yeah.
We have a lot of comments. Oh, I see Julie. Julie, are you with, Amanda, are you with Julie?
We're not together, no, but
But Julie is from the collective.
she's our fearless leader.
Thank you, Julie, for all of these comments. She's like helping us on the comment end. That is amazing. All right, so the next thing that I want to talk about, so we have sign language as one mode of communication that parents can start now, teachers can start now. The next one I want to talk about, and this is kind of a more broad strategy where you can use it many different types of ways, and that's pictures. So when my kids were about 3, I didn't realize that they needed extra support with what I was saying. You know, I kept repeating myself over and over and over again. I thought that was working, you know, that should work, right? So it did not work. It did not work for my kids. So we ended up putting pictures of food on the fridge. We used some of them were like stock pictures from Google. Some of them were pictures of their actual food. And so we printed it out, laminated them. If you don't have a laminator yet, that's the thing that you need. You need a laminator. So we ended up printing things out, putting them on the fridge, putting a magnet on them, and it added independence to them. You know, it added more confidence to them. They were able to tell us exactly what they wanted, exactly what they needed. My kids are grazers, so we don't have, we do have meal times, but they're grazers. So if they wanted something, they could go pull it off the fridge and say, give me this, Mom. And so I think that was a turning point for me in understanding that in order to support them, I needed to be using a lot more pictures. So what I ended up doing was every time we went somewhere, I would take a picture of it. If we went to the aquarium, of course you take pictures all the time. So I would, take a picture of it and laminate it and use it. So I could use it as a visual and say, hey, we're going to the aquarium today. So everywhere we went, I took a picture. Every person we saw, I took a picture. And I felt like that was just the biggest turning point for me as a parent, for my kids to be able to communicate with me, gain confidence, be more independent. And so that's where we kind of, I don't know. I don't even know what to say about that, but pictures were a turning point for us. So, what do you have to say about that?
Absolutely. So that's where I think AAC really starts to come in, and you saw that on your own. You did that on your own with pictures.
So that would be considered AAC.
Absolutely. You did it with nouns, took pictures of, things, places. So you could really empower, and that would be like your kid's personal core. We talk about core vocabulary, which are, words that make up about 80% of what we say as people and can be very flexible words. So when we set up an AAC program for somebody, we want to make sure that core words are there, they're flexible.
Are those the verbs? Are core words verbs?
They're not just verbs. Sorry, my table broke.
Oh God.
They're not just verbs. They could be pronouns, verbs, question words, your who, what, where. They're words that can be strewn together. So the goal of an augmentative or alternative communication system is for our person to be able to generate spontaneous, novel utterances. They can string together words that are their own. We also want to have things in there that are chunked. When we wake up and say, good morning, how are you? That's in our brains as a chunked phrase.
It's like one word, right?
Yeah, that's just one thing. So kids' communication devices should have things like that in there. Just push a button and it says, good morning, how are you, right? Because we have access to that in our brain. They should have access to that in theirs. A device should have access to quick fires that are personal to them, their favorite foods, the places they want to go to, the aquarium, if that's a favorite thing, people in their life, their favorite activities, so that they open up that page, it's right there, right? That gives them quick success. It gives you quick success.
Awesome. And that's kind of like, so if you don't have access to an actual device, one way that you can organize your pictures, let's say that you're like me and you ended up taking pictures everywhere. I have like a whole stack of these pictures. And one way you can organize them is in a binder. And that was one thing I did want to talk about. There's something called a PEX binder. This is not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about like a 3-ring binder that you make, and you can kind of organize them in ways that work for your kid. So
the other thing I would recommend in a binder like that, if you're starting out like kind of rough and you're starting on your own and you have your kids' personal things, is to have a personal dictionary in there. Like when he stims like this, it means he's nervous. When he stims like this, it means he's excited. When he grabs your hand, he wants to go to the bathroom. So you want that personal dictionary of those non-speaking communicative action that other people know what they mean, so they can respond to. So that when he goes to school, the teacher can look and say, oh, I know what that means. I can respond to that.
Wow. That's a great idea. Because all of that is communication.
Yes.
Yeah, all of that is communication. So that is like it's like a translator.
Mm-hmm. So then when we start modeling, whether it's, on a core board or on a device, if we're modeling a feeling and he's excited because we know that this stim means I'm excited, we find the excited button and everybody knows, oh, you're excited. And we're modeling that button and it's consistent because we know what that means. Everybody's modeling it. It's being modeled across situations.
And for parents that are like, if you're like square one, this is something you can do today with a pen and a pencil. This is not something, none of this is fancy stuff. Like actually, you do not need, this is like stuff that you can do.
That I can share after, that's like you can take functions across environments and parents can fill out to start to kind of get a dictionary going.
That'd be awesome. Okay, great. Yeah, all of these links, I see that Julie is up here like linking it up, and I love it. She is doing so much work. Thank you for that. So yeah, all of these links and resources that we talk about will be in the comments eventually, and this video will stay up on the page, and then we'll probably share it over different pages. So another thing I want to talk about with pictures that you can use is visual schedules, which I have found are really great in lots of different situations. So visual schedules are, if you're using them with pictures, which is great for kids that are, especially kids that are younger, they could look like this. So this is a visual schedule of like getting ready for school in the morning, and this one is like really pretty and laminated. This is the only one that's pretty and laminated. None of my stuff looks cute like this, but it's pretty and laminated. The one thing I will say with laminating a visual schedule is that your kid doesn't have any input on what they do first. So we use this now because they know that they can choose what they want to do first, but we did not start with something that was laminated. We just use this kind of like as a check the boxes thing. What we did start with is something that looks like this. Let me back it up here. This is like the most tattered visual schedule you will ever see, and it works just fine. So when we started with visual schedules, and you can always correct me, Amanda, if I'm doing something that is not correct, but we would, it's just a strip with Velcro. And we would say, okay, so here are like 3 things that we need to do before we go to school. One of them is maybe taking a bath. That's a picture of our bathtub. We have lots of funnels in there. Brushing hair, eating, right? So these are just visuals for them. And they could decide what they wanted to do first. And I think that that's important too, is when you're using visuals, when you're using these communication methods, this is not a one-way, communication is not one way, right? So you want to give your kids as much autonomy and empowerment as they can get, because their lives are already so controlled. And I feel like that's important to remember when we're talking about all of these modes, is that they should have a say in, they should always have a say, unless it's like, life or death. So we would use this as a visual schedule. And this is just like one schedule for one part of the day. And we might have another schedule for like the entire day. So you can use these schedules simultaneously throughout your house. We have one in the kitchen. We have one in the bathroom. We have, and they are just used to support.
Mm-hmm.
They're just used for support.
Support, not control.
Right.
So there's a lot of flexibility when I use a schedule. And if a kid is too overwhelmed and they can't express why, I let it go. As long as it's not life or death and there's not imminent danger, I let it go. That usually means there's a sensory piece or there is a dysregulation piece that I am missing and they can't tell me about.
And that's your fault, not theirs.
That's mine. That's on me. And if I can't figure it out and they're that uncomfortable, it's not worth it. It's not worth pushing somebody into that much discomfort over brushing their teeth,
Right.
It'll happen in the morning, I'm sure, or maybe an hour later, but if I back off, usually we circle around when they're ready.
Right.
Because especially like in my office, so I also run a summer camp. So the kids, I get used to the kids, and the kids get used to our rules and our routines. Kids will circle back around. These kids are super smart. They know the expectations. And especially once you build that rapport, if they're saying no, there's a reason they're saying no.
And we're trusting them. And they know that they can trust you. And so that's also a two-way street. They're trusting that you will let them, you're hearing them, you're listening to them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I use the schedules, but there's always a break. Yeah.
Julie says, I use visual schedules for the majority of my autistic students. I use them for both non-speaking and speaking students. Right.
Yeah.
Because when anxiety, sensory triggers, overwhelming events go up, the child's ability for language access goes down. Right. Visual schedules should include options to protest, to request breaks, bathroom, water, etc. Absolutely. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
That's great. I mean, it's these visuals are for support and they're not for control. And I think that that's important. That's going to bring me to my next one. We talked about this before the live and I was like, oh, Amanda, what do you think about this? Okay. So this is another tool that I use with my kids. And I have a disclaimer before I even show this. This is not for control. Okay. This is not a rule. This is just a tool. So this is a first then card, and which is another visual that I really like to use. Right. So with any child, you might say, oh, we're going to go to McDonald's, but first we have to go to wherever. Or, okay, yeah, sure, you can go outside, but first you need to put your shoes on. Right. And that's something that we talk to our kids about all the time. I mean, there's always precursors to whatever we're doing, right? Okay, first we're gonna, I don't know. You get it.
Megan and I talked about this. When it's used to clarify the language you're using, like, yes, you can go outside, but first you got to put your shoes on. it's muddy out, whatever. Or yes, we're going to McDonald's, but first mommy's stopping at the bank. First the bank, McDonald's. Versus first you've got to earn blah, 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 then you can go outside.
No. None of that. None of that.
We know that there's a language weakness at times. So to clarify a direction or to clarify before a meltdown, or to help clarify what we're saying, versus to control behavior.
Right. So, yeah. But I do find that it's really helpful with my kids, because it is a visual. It is basically
one out the other day, and it helped alleviate an issue.
It's a 2-box visual schedule, right? It's just a visual schedule. Like we're going to do, it's like 1 and then 2, but it does not mean that this is the law and you're going to do this first, or you're not doing this. That's not what the first in card is for. It's just to help support your vocal language so that they can understand visually what you're trying to say.
My situation was literally, I had to take tinfoil off of something before we put it into the microwave. So I was explaining first the tinfoil off, then we put it in the microwave.
I don't have a card for tinfoil.
So safety thing.
Gloria said, I've tried getting my son's teacher to understand that even though he's completed his pack up routine on his own a few times, doesn't mean she should take away his visual schedule. I also suggested that all students should have visual schedules, and she uses her calendar every day. It's the same thing. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. We agree with you.
Would you like some research? I was going to ask Gloria if she wanted research.
If we can do that, that would be great to give that to the teacher. And also, Gloria, you can put that in the IEP. If you have an IEP for your kids, I mean, it's something that you would hope that a teacher would recognize that, but that's not your job to make them recognize it. If you have that type of rapport with the teacher, that would be great if you could send her some links or or try to educate her on that way. But really, your job is to protect your child, to advocate for your child. And so you put it in the IEP. Visual schedules for this. Oh, she does want the research. All right, we're going to put it up. I'm going to write that down. I take notes. Okay, so the next thing I want to talk about is the binders, because I did have a question from another parent that's in my book club, and her child is in speech therapy, and they have started PECS. And I am not here to badmouth PECS. PECS is a picture binder, and it has steps to learning it. And so we didn't use PECS at my house. We did have a binder because we organized our pictures in the binder. And that was just easiest because we had a lot of pictures, right? And so I trusted my kids enough that they could use it how they want to use it, right? They're already pulling pictures off the fridge. They get it. They get that this is kind of a new way for them to communicate. They're liking it. And so I find that with PECS, it's a very rigid process that's unnatural. That's my opinion, not as an SLP. I'm not an SLP. I'm just a parent that has seen the process of PECS. And I think that it's unnatural, and I think that it's rigid, and I have a problem with that personally. So the parent said, I'm sorry, I had it up. It'll be easy for me to find. Here it is. So one parent said, how to make sure that PECS training is done correctly. My son's speech therapist said that in PECS phase 1, we can only use one symbol picture. My son is at phase 1. We are only using one symbol, which is more, with him. That's another problem for me, but okay. When I said, can we add more symbols like open, help, water, etc., she said other symbols can be added at phase 3. Picture discrimination. When I insisted, she said to use more card for open and asked me to say open and then open the thing for my son. I felt a little weird. Any advice on that? Okay, any advice on that? I'm gonna go give this question to you. Are we gonna have a moment of silence?
So
I'm gonna let you think about that while I say
here's
no.
so sometimes I think that some speech therapists, not through their own fault, I think that we don't always get the best support that we need coming out of the gates. And PECS is a great system that's packaged really pretty. So if you're new to non-speaking kids, this looks like it's a really great regimented system.
Easy to follow.
Easy to follow, right? And parents know it. If you're a new parent, and that's poor therapy on our part. So I apologize. PECS is the purpose of PECS really is to teach initiation. It sounds like your kiddo is initiating. If I were you, I would advocate for a more robust system. Your kiddo doesn't have to prove anything. Your kiddo needs access to more words, and it sounds like you're ready to be modeling. The way that we implement robust systems is through what's called aided language input. We call that modeling. What that means is we have a system, and we let kids have access to lots of words, lots of robust words. This is one example.
What program is that, Amanda?
Well, this is Touch Chat with Word Power. This is one example. And you could hide some of these words so that, as your kiddo's establishing their motor plan, all these buttons aren't available. But say you're working on the word more and open for that week, you guys are just, modeling for him. Every time you say the word more and open, you're pushing it. There's no testing. You're just giving your child a model. Babies are born, and we talk to them in their native language for 12 to 18 months before they're expected to say a word. For our kids that are going to be what we call symbolic communicators, we can't hand them a device and say, hey, start talking. We need to give them that same receptive symbolic language, receptively. We need to talk to them in their language. We need to show them what it looks like. We need to give them that for 12 to 18 months sometimes before we expect them to come up and push more. And we're not testing them. We're just giving them language-rich environment. We're practicing. We're learning the device ourselves. We have teams involved and on board, and we're using literacy. We're reading books. We're doing all of it, so it all comes together. And they're walking into kindergarten, and they're talking, and they're doing more than I want. They're telling us about the plane they see, and they're telling jokes, and they're telling us to shut up. They're doing everything that's appropriate. They're doing all of the things that we want them to be doing when they're communicating.
So moral of the story is that we should be giving our kids as many words as possible, no matter if it's in a binder, no matter if it's on pictures, no matter if it's on an AAC device, whether, we're giving them as many words as possible, modeling them.
If you think about it, the number of words you give to your kiddo in a device, in a binder, that's as big as their world is. That's as much as they can express to you. So What you're handing them, that's their world, basically.
Right. So we need to make their world very big.
Yeah.
Okay. So, all right. So I'm glad that we got through that. Let's talk about AAC devices. We are, yeah, let's just talk about AAC devices. I think that my thing is that, so I didn't learn about AAC until my child, who was non-speaking still at the time, like with almost zero words, I would say, orally, zero spoken words. He was 4, and nobody ever said to me until he was 4, hey, let's get him an AAC device. So this is me saving you time as a parent, as a teacher, whatever. Start the process of getting that AAC device. And it doesn't have to be the hugest one, right? It can be something on the phone for now. It can be, there's lots of apps.
There are.
There's in Google Play, there are apps for that, you know, for AAC. But I would say start the process now for getting a big AAC device, and talk to us about what we talked about yesterday was how to choose the right one for your kid.
So there's lots of good discussion right now about that. And I'm reading some good research, or I've been reading some good research on, you know, why devices get abandoned. You know, why do people kind of get overwhelmed and stop the process? And a lot of it has to do with, you know, parents not feeling supported. And I 100% would agree with that. You know, the team not feeling supported. So we as practitioners need to do a better job of training parents and caregivers and getting the team on board. So that's a big thing. So a colleague of mine made a great point. You know, we don't have a lot of really great research that says, you know, this app or this program or this linguistic, you know, setup plugs into this kid's brain and they're mapped for that program. But what we do have is some great research showing that if we have a lot of people, adults, and adult familiarity, you know, buy-in from everybody, and everybody's using the device, and we're all modeling and we're giving, you know, the aided language input the way we're supposed to be consistently across environments, then a lot of success. So it might not be, you know, an issue with the kid and the program, but we need to have the buy-in with everybody, the kiddo picking a program that the family feels comfortable with, that the teachers feel comfortable with, that we can all get on board with, and everybody just has that buy-in.
That was one thing. So when you're talking about getting an AAC device for your child, I think that the first step is getting an AAC assessment. You can get a referral from the pediatrician for an AAC assessment. And that is probably the first step when trying to get an AAC device approved through insurance. So this is Jay's AAC device. He uses Proloquo to go, which we love. And you can see here that he has lots and lots of words. And then he has folders here at the bottom. So Jay has always been able to do like my Netflix, you know, he's good on YouTube. So he already kind of knows how to like manage things. He knows what the back button is for. So we started off with like the highest word count with folders at the bottom for places, things, people, actions, feelings, colors. I mean, we made some of our own folders for like school if he was doing colors and shapes and numbers. And he also has a keyboard up there that he can kind of grow with until he gets a different app for that. But what was important to me is when we went to the AAC assessment, and this is kind of what Amanda is saying, is that I know that our public school, our district, is very familiar with Proloquo to go. And I know that because they were in preschool already. And I had already seen that they had like a core board that had like the same symbols as Proloquo to Go. And I was like, oh, maybe they got that core board from the company. So I knew that that the school district was on board with Proloquo to Go. And so I was happy when the AAC assessment said, oh, well, this is the best app for him. But if I could go back in time after talking with Amanda today, I would have advocated for Proloquo to Go, because I know that the community, Jay's community, would be more on board with it, and that would help him. I know that his speech, his SLP at school is very familiar with Proloquo to Go. The head SLP of the district, I don't even know what her title is, but she's very familiar with that program. So if I could go back in time and you guys are starting out, that's something that you might want to ask the school system about. You know, what do you guys use the most? What are you guys most proficient with, so that I can be a more informed parent in advocating for my child's success?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's definitely something to factor in.
Oh, here's a question. Would the SLP be the one to do the assessment for AAC device? So
typically, yes. If they don't feel comfortable, then your state might have an assistive technology center that
that's what we have.
Yeah, to do it. I know some speech pathologists don't have. They'll say that they don't feel like they have the training, and so they may, like, a school district may refer out to somebody who feels like they can do a better assessment.
Yeah, and we didn't go for insurance purposes. We did not go through the schools. We went through the doctor with a referral to what did you call it again?
Assistive technology center or whatever. Like there's a SLP or whatever. Yeah.
And that was like at the local children's hospital. So they just had a center, and that's what they did. So it was an SLP and an OT, because a lot of our kids do have issues with motor planning. So there may be accommodations or alterations or different devices that your kid would do better on. You know,
they may
have certain challenges,
different switch access or something like that.
And there's like guides or something. I don't know all about that, but yeah. So they're trained to see, you know, what your child would be most successful on. And then also, I do want to tell people that once you get that process started with the doctor or the SLP for insurance purposes, what we also had to do was, at the school, we couldn't just put that in his IEP. We couldn't just say, well, maybe we could have if I fought it, but they wanted to do their own AAC assessment at the school. And I was fine with that, because we were just going through the process, and I let them know like what the people at the center said, and that this is where we're going. This is where we're headed with it, was to Proloquo to Go. And so they did their own assessment. And that way they were able to have their own device at school. So Jay has his device at school, and he also has a device at home. So that way he doesn't have to travel with it. And they have it like as soon as he's getting off the bus, it's there for him. Mm-hmm. So that's another thing to just kind of talk with your school about it. Talk with the your special education coordinator or whatever. I hope that helped your question. Are there, and I'm gonna just look through the comments. This is a good one. Okay. I've been trying to introduce picture cards to my almost 4-year-old, completely nonverbal son. When we sit down to go over them, he starts to have tantrums.
So yeah. Julie addressed this.
So he did. Okay. She did.
Yeah. And this is a good thing. Julie addressed this perfectly too. Trying not to test. Introducing these in natural, and again, when you're modeling on a device, when you're when you're doing communication, we're not in the business of testing and assessing. We are in the business of facilitating natural communication and getting real communication and real linguistic systems into place. So maybe take those picture cards and pick one or two and think of an activity. So maybe your kiddo likes bubbles and you have the word pop and you have the word open and you have those picture cards. And so you have those picture cards out and you're hitting, I'm gonna open, and you open the bubbles and you're like touching the pop one as you're popping bubbles. But there's no expectation for your kiddo to touch the picture. You're just modeling. You're not testing him. There's no hand over hand. You're not in his space. He still has bodily autonomy. He's just watching what you're doing. You're showing him that this is his language. This is what he can do. He can pop, he can hit open. This is what it's used. Then you take that same picture for open and you put it on the cupboard. I'm going to open the cupboard, and you're showing him, again, another tool for that. Or, you're moving open to, a favorite toy that has to be opened. Or I'm going to open my fruit snacks. Again, you're just touching it. You're just using that symbol and you're showing him how it's used in context, and you're touching it when you're doing that in context. But there's no expectation. You're not doing open, now you touch it. That's too much. That's too much expectation.
And I would also like to add, and you're not withholding. You're not withholding anything. You're not gonna say, okay, well,
that's not
press open.
That's not how we teach. That's not how we teach typical people.
Absolutely, yeah. Oh, I see you now. Okay. Yeah, like we don't do that to typical children. We don't withhold the bubbles.
No.
Until they say the word open. We just don't do that. So we would not do that with our
we know research tells us these are complex bodies with a lot of extra noise inside. We don't know that they're trying to get their mouths to make that sound, or they're trying to move their hand to point. So we're presuming that all is all happening.
Absolutely. I think Julie called me out on something. How does he communicate on the bus? So Julie's talking to me, I think, about about the AAC device. So he does have a folder in his backpack that he uses that has like the core words, and I'm trying to think of what else it has on it, but he does have something in his folder that he takes with him on the bus in his backpack.
Does he have a para?
On the bus?
Yeah, because typically the kids that I work with, like the para or the bus driver, will have the device on the bus when they pick them up.
Well, that's something I need to, that is not something that, no, they do have an assistant on the bus. So that's something that I need to write down. It's not, I don't know. I need to write that down. We've honestly, Julie, Amanda, we have been having issues just in general with his device being accessible. I won't go into that because it's a work in progress. But that is something that I need to write down. Thank you, Julie. So AAC on the bus. Because you're right, because that thing in his folder, it's just the core words, and it's not his language that he is used to having. Like I said, work in progress. Thank you for joining me on my learning journey. That's right. It needs to be accessible at all times. And I do talk about that on the page a lot. So Jay uses his device, but he doesn't use it all the time. Like, so we went to a birthday party, and when he's running and he's playing and he's eating with his friends, he doesn't use his device all that often. I would say probably he's used it maybe like once or twice at a birthday party, right? So I showed a picture and I talked about that. Like, it doesn't matter when he uses it. He has to have access to it at all times. So I'm just going around and holding his device, right? He's not going to use it. He's too busy. Like, he's busy being a kid. He's busy playing. He's busy doing all of the things that he's doing. But it doesn't matter.
But it's there if he needs it.
He needs to have access to it at all times. And that's one thing that I've been learning about, and Julie just called me out on. Like, he doesn't have access to it on the bus. So I need to work on that. So thank you. Okay. We're all in this learning journey together, right?
Yeah.
All right, let's see. Julie said kids should have access to their communication device at all time. I have human rights info on this on the website. It's a human right. Right. And I feel the same way. I slipped up on the bus. I slipped up on the bus. So I feel the same way that you do. It is a human right, and they should have access to it, whether they use it or not. And also, I would say that another thing with AAC is that when we're modeling AAC, especially on the device, when the kids start playing with it, there's a button up here that I've showed people before, and
McDonald's.
It's the McDonald's button, right? Your kids will find this McDonald's button, and they will press it
McDonald's
over and over and over again, right? And so any parent or teacher might end up taking that device away. You might think about, oh, he's just playing on it, or no, we're not doing that anymore. That's something that is not okay. So I would stress to anybody, and it's not the parents. It's not usually the parents that are taking it away. It's usually maybe a teacher is going to take it away, or somebody with authority might want to take it away at that point. And I would say to advocate for your child at that point that no, we don't take their device away at any time. No. Even if they're just playing with it, if they're just pressing buttons. That's what kids do when they learn how to talk, right? They babble, they repeat themselves all the time. So we never take it away. I think I'm just getting way off topic here. I'm just like thinking of things, but what I'm saying is I agree, Julie. It is a human right. We don't ever take it away. They should always have access to it. All right, let me see. Have you seen any other questions? Because now we have gone over an hour, and I told you it would only be an hour. So I think that Julie has been helping us out on the question front, and we appreciate that. And if you ever have any other questions, you can always, because I know a lot of people will tune in later, and you can always add questions in the comments, and we'll try to monitor that, at least for maybe a day or two. Does that sound good to you?
Yeah.
I'm going to try to hide this comment. It's still up here. And now I can't find it. There we go. All right. Well, okay. So thank you, Amanda.
So stimming, let me answer that. Stimming is bad.
Oh, I didn't see one. Go ahead.
So stimming, that question right there, stimming is babbling. That's their babbling phase. If you don't let them go through that, that's them learning where the vocabulary is in the folders. That's them memorizing the device. I have kids that will sit and it looks like they're stimming. That is them learning their device. That needs to happen. That is part of the process. I will talk about, volume, and I teach kids about, hey, we might look around, we might need to adjust our voice. We might need to talk a little quieter right now. Everybody's playing quietly, those types of things. And I still teach pragmatics, like the rules for, talking. And if they're stimming and they need to talk out loud, I have lots of spaces for kids to kind of go, do their scripting and talking and stuff where they can kind of go and do that, where they do that. I have lots of space for that. But that needs to happen, or that's part of their learning process.
That's a great point. I'm glad that you asked that. Who was that? Beverly.
Beverly, yeah.
That's a great question. Yeah, that's an awesome question.
I always see like a language burst after like large amounts of like chunks of time where a kid is like stimming and stimming and stimming on a device. Big language burst happens. I have no research to back that up. It's only my own personal data, but
right. Maybe you can make a research paper off of that. Yeah, my kid. Yeah, so Jay does that. Beverly says, sorry. So,
I never redirect stimming. Never.
They're working it out.
Yeah, stimming is something that people need to do. As long as they're not hurting themselves or anybody else, I never redirect stimming. Nope.
They're working it out in their own ways. Absolutely. Yeah. So my Jay does that a lot with the keyboard. So there's a keyboard on Poloco to Go. It says French fries. It always says French fries, no matter what. And I promise you, we've used it since the last one. French fries is a thing for us. But he does that a lot with the keyboard, and it's letters. And he may go through the alphabet A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K. And I don't know if that's stimming or not. I'm not sure what that even is. I mean, I call it practicing.
Oh yeah.
I don't know. Maybe it is stimming, but yeah, it's him practicing. And then all of a sudden he typed his name, and it was, okay. So you can do that now, huh?
Yeah.
Great question, Beverly. Is there anything else you want to say before we go?
No. Thank you for having me.
I appreciate it. This has been great. Huh?
I said I hope I was helpful.
This has been amazing, and I hope that it helps anybody. I hope it helps somebody, one person, and then we've done our job for the day.
Right.
How to make sure PECS is done in a correct manner. Tessa, if you're just joining us, we did talk about this, and I would say that you need to advocate, not what you need to do. My advice would be to advocate for your child and to say,
you don't have to start with
PECS. Huh?
You don't have to start with PECS.
No, you don't. Like that's something you can say no to. Like parents can say no all of the time, and use your voice and say no. This is not okay with me. I don't want to do this program. I want to do something more natural. I want to, say, okay, well, we can use that binder. That's fine. You already have it out, but you can just use the argument that I want to give my child as many words as possible in a natural, doing it in a natural way. And you can say, like, if your kid, so the PECS, Amanda said that the PECS system is to teach initiation, right? Is that what you said?
Primarily, that's its primary objective, but you're never going to get, you can only really initiate requests with PECS. You're never really going to get, big functions of language with PECS.
So basically you can just say to the whoever's doing it, I don't want to limit my child to that. I want to use something else. I want to start the process of AAC. I want to give my child as many words as possible.
I want more robust communication that fulfills all functions of language.
Yeah, that sounds smart, like Amanda.
Will be a good springboard for literacy. Absolutely.
And I think that there were some links that Julie has put up in slpncd.org. That's you guys, right?
Yeah, I think it should be ndc.org though.
Yeah, it's SLP It stands for Neurodiversity
Collective.
What's the D?
Neuro
Oh, NDC. Got it. Neurodiversity Collective. Okay. Awesome. Gloria says my son repeats his alphabet constantly. Also, yeah, Jay is into that right now. He is doing his ABCs all the time. So it would be normal. This is Gloria. It would be normal to do that on the keyboard as well. Absolutely. It's just another mode of communication. Absolutely. Oh, okay. Julie's got the link up there. And I think that there are some resources for you, Teslin, on that. If you need to arm yourself with some resources. Well, thank you for joining us.
Absolutely.
Thank you for joining me, Amanda. This has been amazing. Thank you to SLP Neurodiversity Collective.
Yes.
And I want to say bye. And we'll keep on with the comments after we're done, but I have to let Amanda go. All right. So bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.